This is Dream Chasers, episode 16, with MC Laubscher. Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Adam Carswell, and welcome to Dream Chasers, Interviews with the Future. On Dream Chasers, we interview individuals with supernatural amounts of potential based on early success in their careers. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's get straight to the interview. Hey guys, this is Adam Carswell, and today I'm joined by MC Laubscher. MC is the founder and CEO of Producers Wealth. Producers Wealth is a wealth creation firm based out of Newtown, Pennsylvania that services clients in all 50 states. MC is originally from Stellenbosch, South Africa, and moved to the US in 2001, where he also played rugby in Philadelphia, San Diego, and Chicago, while being a member of the US men's national player pool. He now resides in beautiful Newtown, Pennsylvania with his wife, Megan, and son, Christian. MC, thank you for being on the show. And do you have any opening remarks for our listeners?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, and excited to have a conversation with you as always. It's always a lot of fun, and excited to maximize value for your listeners.
Thank you. I want to let everyone know real quick too, MC has definitely been a personal inspiration for me. You can check out his podcast, the Cashflow Ninja. I don't even know. He's probably in like almost episode 400 by now, but definitely one of the higher end guests that we've had on the show so far. So I'm definitely excited about this. And as MC also reaffirms in a lot of his shows, your net worth is your network. And so you've definitely been an inspiration to me, and I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, and honored to share. And it's so true what you just said, that your net worth is tied to your network, and I always use that wealth formula that I learned from a mentor, which is basically that your mental capital, which is your intellectual capital, times your relationship capital, would in the end produce and result in more financial capital.
Absolutely. MC, how long have you been a producer?
That's a great question. I was thinking about that for a second too, just looking at production and what it means. And that's also the name of my wealth creation firm, as you mentioned, Producers Wealth, because being a little bit of an Ayn Rand fan as well, and love the books and some of the content and lessons and philosophical outlook in the books. There are folks that produce and create for others. And then unfortunately, just as part of society, then there are folks that just consume, right? So I've always been really just fired up, I would say, and motivated to be one of the people that produce and create value for others, and being one of those members in society. Because those, if you look out through history, the world is where we currently are with some of the innovations and some of the exciting things going on, because there are people that's trying to produce and create constantly for others. So I would say, it started at school when I started reading out widely, that I've always aspired to, in everything that I do, produce more than I consume. Make an impact.
Awesome. And I'd say one thing that has really sparked my interest is it seems like what you've been able to accomplish in the past 5 years or less has been pretty admirable. When was it exactly that you decided that you wanted to take this to the next level?
Yeah, I think there was a moment about, I think in around 2011-ish, I had a moment where there was a couple of setbacks from a personal standpoint, relationships, health, financial too. A couple of investments were soured. And I really, instead of just feeling sorry for myself constantly, which, hey, truth be told, I did, like all of us humans do, we do feel sorry for ourselves when things don't go away. But I just took a step back a little bit and just looked at what went down. I took full responsibility for it. I became accountable to myself and for everything that happened in my life, and realized that everything happened because of me and not to me. Mm-hmm. And when I switched that around, then I also wanted to start playing at a higher level. I looked at folks that inspired and motivated me, and I said, why not me? And I think that might be a good question if your listeners are listening to ask for themselves too. What do you figure? Look at people that are already doing what you're doing and accomplishing what you want to accomplish, and ask yourself that question: why not you? We're all just humans. There's nothing. Every person started somewhere. It's a journey that they're on. So I think that was kind of the turning point in my life, which I decided to make a change. I committed to make a change daily, incrementally, small steps, and everything happens in the moment on a daily basis. And I continue, by the way, to make that commitment and make that decision every day, because it's something that needs to be done every single day, because it's a long journey. There's a lot of challenges. There's obstacles. If it was this easy, then everybody else would be doing it. And there's constant stuff happening, right. Whether you're successful or relatively successful or uber successful, there's really still challenges on a daily basis. So you have to make that decision daily and commit to want to play a bigger game and want to play at a higher level.
Right. So in 2011, because I know we all can probably think of those defining moments or those milestones that we hit, and there's always going to be milestones in the future, but there are those moments in the past where it's like it was that moment. It was that time where I truly believe that I finally flipped the switch. Do you have a physical or memorable example of that time frame in 2011, like something that happened that really did trigger this momentum for you?
Yeah, I think I was just sitting by myself at that stage in the apartment where I was at, and spend the weekend by myself, just trying to figure out, first of all, the mess that I was in, and then trying to figure out a way out of the mess. And yeah, I remember that moment, and it was a humbling experience, because I think there's a lot of folks that, we don't want to admit that we're wrong. We all, it's just natural, right? We become very defensive, especially if money is in there. That's how we're programmed by society and by schools, is that we get defensive. That's why not a lot of people talk about money openly too out there, by the way. And people that do, they get, people point fingers at them, and more people will talk about, what they do, in their sexual lives than what they do financially, right? I just, at that stage, I still remember that weekend. It was a humbling experience, but it was just, it was a decision that I made, looking at myself in the mirror, that there's only one person looking back. And if anything was going to change anything in my life, it was going to be up to me.
So now looking at your life and your mission, what is your why? Why do you do what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. The core of my why is my family, to provide the life of our vision for our lives, right? And that drives me every day. I have family in South Africa, I have family in Australia, and then my immediate family here. We have a son, Megan and myself. We're very fortunate to have a son, and another one on the way in December. So another child. So that really motivates me every single day to do that, and provide the lives of our vision and our future. So that's always been a very big driver. And then, of course, from a marketplace, I see a lot of the challenges out there, and I'm very passionate about certain things. And I just realized that financial education, for instance, is a very, very big one. We just look at how the world looks right now and how many people are struggling financially, and you kind of come to a conclusion of the deep-seated roots of why it is that way. And then, you come up with solutions of how to combat it and fight back. And that drives me every single day. One of the metrics in my company is how many people do we get to help? How many people did we help this week? How many people did we help last month? And how many people did we help last year? And how many people will we help this year? So it's not just all numbers and numbers and revenue and all that stuff. That's great, but in the end, it comes down to people. And it's like, for us, that's one of the things that we look at. How many people did we help, and how many people are we helping, and how many people will we help? So that's kind of my why, and I love that question, because the other thing that I also say is everything starts in your own home. We live in a world today that's very conflicted. There's a lot of literally torn societies, societies at quote unquote war with each other, not just in the United States where there's a massive split in the population, but also globally. And I guess one of the reasons why I'm bringing it up and tying it into my why is start at home, be that person for that family. And my family definitely stirs that up in me. And that's where it all starts. That's how you create a better community, a better society is it starts at home.
Right. And to stay on the topic of family real quick, because there's an interview that you did recently with my business partner over at Cashflow Connections, Hunter Thompson, and you guys really went into detail. You don't have to go into as much detail right now, but how the wealthier families around the world, because you work with a lot of them, how they think differently and how they treat financial education just as important as I'm trying to think the words I'm looking for. Basically, they really prioritize financial education in a way that your average family doesn't. So can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned there? And also I want to reassure you, don't be shy. I love your opinions, where you come from, especially, I see a lot of relations that we have there. So just give it to us straight, no chaser. Don't worry about being politically correct.
No worries. Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that I've seen, and I've been fortunate enough through relationships of mine and still through current relationships of folks that operate in the family office space, I learn and I try to learn as much as I possibly can every single day, as you know, Adam. So I try to learn as much as I can from these people. It starts with a core philosophy and a worldview, right? And then core beliefs and then principles of values. And why I say it starts with philosophy, like you mentioned money. Now, the one thing that these wealthy families and ultra affluent, and I'm not talking about the millionaire next door. We're talking about real money here, old money. So there's a lot of folks that you think that are rich and wealthy. They're not. We're talking about legacy families here because there's a massive difference between it. And the reason why I wanted to point this out is the wealth transfer and the different philosophy. So their philosophy, their understanding of what money is and what money's supposed to be is different than what a lot of people think out in the street, for instance. Like they know money as a medium of exchange or representation of value. They know that money's value depends on its accessibility, its use, the control you have over it, its ability to go into the marketplace and buy goods and services, right? And or move through assets effectively and efficiently to produce cash flow. So they understand what money is. And by the understanding of what it is, when they transfer wealth within these legacy families and some of these extremely, extremely wealthy families, when they transfer wealth from one generation to another, they just don't throw assets and money down to the next generation. The statistics are just scary right now. So for instance, if there's a first generation family that makes a significant amount of money, the statistics are that, and the average is that most of that money is gone within 18 months of the passing of those two parents. Because it's now you've just passed on the money. So now what you have is folks going out buying Lambos, popping bubblies, beach houses, trips, all that kind of stuff. So you, in essence, then have trust fund babies without the trust fund, is what I always joke about, right? Mm-hmm. So what the ultra wealthy do is they pass on intellectual capital and knowledge. There's a transfer of this intellectual capital and knowledge along with the assets. And also their philosophy is that they only control those assets and that estate during their lifetime. They don't look at it as like, this is ours, we own it, right? We control it, we're taking care of it, we're stewards of this capital and these assets that belong to our family. Not me, or not my siblings. This is for generations to come. So when you have that mindset and a transfer of intellectual capital and knowledge capital, then you also look at, how do they do this? Well, yes, they go to private schools. They don't go to public schools. But even within the private schools, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's learned at home. And they see how their parents, their relationship to money. They see how their parents, what their parents' philosophy is, what their core beliefs is, what their principles and values is. And this is also codified in documents in the family. Like, for instance, a lot of these families have a family constitution. You know, everyone can go on, what is it? There's a website where you can look up your roots.
Family tree or ancestry.
Yeah. Everybody looks at that and they go, "Oh, we have a crest in Europe." You know, that's about where it stops. These families actually codify things that are important to them. It's a living and breathing document, like a family constitution that explains the philosophy of the family, the worldview, the core beliefs of the family. Like, for instance, we talked about producers and creators. Like, for instance, that is a core belief, for instance, of some of these families, that they're here to produce and create, not consume. They're here to contribute. They're here to give to society. They're here to help other people. That could be a core belief. And then there's principles and values of how you deliver and do that. And then there's also a lot of other different rules of who can access the capital, what are the terms and so forth, which gets a little bit more in the mechanical part of it. But it's important to know that all of these things are brought in together. And then, of course, you know, the Rothschilds in Europe. There's a book, The Five Men from Frankfurt. It's a great one, which talks about the family retreat, of how these families get together and share, just basically review these documents and contribute it, add to it, as they move on, and also share best practices and live this legacy of the family, right? So it's not just the money that's passed down. That's mechanical. That could be done through proper estate planning, through different trusts and so forth. But it's the knowledge and the intellectual capital. And by the way, these families, the importance that they place on relationships, on philosophy, concepts, creativity, all these other things, knowledge, right? They think that that's more powerful than any amount of real estate that you can give them in money, because they know that when they have that, they can go out and get it themselves. So how many times have we seen billionaires go all in on something basically and somebody ends up bankrupt? And then they bounce back even quicker because they have that mental capital, that intellectual capital, that knowledge, and then they also have the relationships to combine that and then go on to their next venture, which would be successful. So I think it comes down to that's much more important to them is that, and preserving and protecting that and transferring that. The assets, yes, strategies change, means of doing things change. If you look at just over the last 200 years and how things will change in the next 100 years, right, with blockchain technology and crypto and all that other stuff. So things change, but the core stuff that's used for this efficient wealth transfer stays the same.
Right. Definitely. The main thing that I take from that is the old cliche that knowledge is power.
It is. It absolutely is. And that's another thing too, I think that I'll tie into that is the right knowledge too, right? Because one of the reasons that I think a lot of folks struggle financially, even people that are high income earners, is because of the wrong data. They have the wrong data and they have the wrong knowledge because they've been getting it from the media that they consumed, and most of these sources of media is owned and controlled by
the families that we're talking about.
Yeah, like what is it now? Five or six media corporations controlling most of the media we consume. This is playing into their playbook. So we're getting the other side of it. A coin has three sides, right? Heads, tails, and the edge.
Absolutely. So to tie back to Producers Wealth a little bit more, how do you want your brand to be perceived?
That's a great question. So I think what I want, and I spend a lot of time thinking about this too, and I want people to look at this brand first of all, that it stands for something, because I think there's a lot of brands that, there's a lot of brands that are out there that really don't codify what they stand for. So it's on our website, who producers and creators are, because we want to draw producers and creators to us. So what would I like to stand for? Self-reliance, freedom, individual freedom and liberty, right? And also people producing and creating value for others. And by doing that, more value will flow back into the company. So yeah, I think we've put a lot of time and thought into that brand and how it would be perceived in the marketplace. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with it.
Perfect. Definitely think you're on the right path with that. What advice do you have for young entrepreneurs? And can you give an example of something that you wish you would have done differently looking back?
Oh, that's a great question. What advice do I have for folks? So I think that, businesses exist really to solve problems and create an outcome for someone. If you're starting a business, it has to solve a problem and a challenge, and it has to solve a specific one, niche down on that, and then also create an outcome for someone. So what I mean by that is a lot of some people have an idea and then they want to start a company around it based on, for instance, let's just say a product. But what problem is it solving? What specific problem? How big would your market be because of that specific problem? Meaning, how many other people have that same problem? And then also test the market. One of the things that I've learned by studying, for instance, someone like Damon John, is he didn't, when he started FUBU, go to his mom and asked her if she liked his t-shirts and his designs. Right. He went out to, in the neighborhood that he was, where that was pretty rough, and got some real feedback from his potential market and folks that would buy that. So also when you're because everyone, especially in our own little individual echo chambers, we think we have the next greatest idea, right? And so test that. Talk to many different people, not just your close friends or your family, because other people will tell you the truth. And then also argue against yourself constantly. Like, why would this not work? Why is this a stupid idea? Ask yourself, why is my idea stupid? Let's just see how many holes can I poke in this. So that's one of the things that I would say. And then I would say three things that are key, though, too, is critical thinking. Number one, it's just so many few people engage in just thinking itself. I don't remember who is it that quoted that thinking is one of the hardest things to do. That's why so few people engage in it, right? But critical thinking especially. And then the other skill sets of problem solving, you have to be able to solve problems, and you have to be resourceful. If you don't know how to you know how to solve the problem, but you don't know how to create the delivery, for instance. Find someone and partner with someone that does, right? And that ties in, again, to the relationship. But those three things are key. And then businesses exist for two things only. Always be cognizant of that, because that's going to help you eliminate, 90% of the ideas that come into your head, especially if you're a young entrepreneur.
Perfect. And an example of something maybe that you wish you would have done differently looking back?
There's a lot of things. I think that I would have spent more money on mentors earlier, and started investing money in a personal brand earlier, because I tried to do something. I didn't, knowing the power of branding and understanding the power of branding, I never tried to build a personal one, which I think I would have tried to establish that now. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you're just working, right? I have a friend and a current client and strategic partner of my company, and his daughter, for instance, is still going. She's still in taking courses to become, for instance, a nurse, right? But she's already branding herself in that space, shooting videos, all that kind of stuff on social media, so that by the time she applies for a job, or find a place that she's going to start a career, she's not going to have a problem to do that. Because just think of all the competition that's out there, that she's going to apply stuff with for employment, right? But she's going to stand out because she's already done all these things. She's already shared. She's already volunteered. All this stuff, and that's just personal branding. So it can work for someone that's going to look for employment somewhere else too, right? It doesn't necessarily just have to work for entrepreneurs. So I think that's something that I would have done differently. And as I mentioned, spend more money on mentors earlier. I've had mentors, but the paid groups and masterminds too, I would have done that a lot earlier because it's really paid off. Yeah, paid off for me from a learning standpoint and then also from a relationship standpoint.
Nice. Yeah, that's really interesting, especially the branding. I think anyone that I've crossed paths with, the ones that stand out are the ones that are out there, getting their face on social media. They've got their own website. They clearly have their own portfolio. I couldn't agree more with that.
Right. Just think about it this way too. Here's a quick idea for like, if you're using that same example, if someone was going to go into the nursing profession, for example, and they started a podcast interviewing a bunch of doctors at different hospitals or, different physicians. Number one, before she's even applied for employment, think of that person's network.
Right. Exactly. So I've got 3 fun questions for you to wrap this interview up. I'm sure you've had some time to think these through. We've got, so what is your favorite ice cream flavor, your favorite movie? I know sometimes that can be a tough one. Yeah. And the favorite guest that you've had on your podcasts.
Oh, wow. Those are one very easy, peanut butter. Anything with peanut butter and ice cream flavor, peanut butter cup.
Really?
My wife loves. I'm very predictable.
Moose tracks?
Well, yeah, I could throw in some moose tracks there too.
Okay.
But peanut butter is definitely a favorite of mine. Movies, well, that's there's a lot of great movies. And actually, I haven't watched a lot of movies lately. But I would think the last great movie that I've seen was the one, what is it called? The Founder with Michael Keaton about McDonald's.
Yes, I've definitely heard of it. I haven't seen it yet, but
that's a great one. And as I mentioned, I haven't watched a lot of movies lately. I can't really remember the last time I watched a movie, but that was probably the last one that I watched. And that was a really, really, really good movie. So I would recommend folks watch that for many different reasons. I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from that. And favorite guest on my show, on my podcast, I had a lot of fun connecting with Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's quite a character. So, had a lot of fun with him.
Yeah. He's definitely one of the most inspirational people out there, I would say. We were talking earlier about defining moments and when we decided to take things to the next level. I know for me, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad back to back. I'm like, okay, got to start thinking a little differently now.
Yeah, and there's, by the way, if you want to talk about branding, he did a phenomenal job too, coming on the scene with that book and establishing that Rich Dad brand, because that's now, I mean, it's a global. For most people that trying to get into finance or investing, that's a household name, right? One of the best personal finance books of all time, I think. But what a brand they've built, and it's quite a rebel brand because it's kind of the opposite of everything that's being taught in schools,
definitely,
and universities.
I just realized, isn't that brand purple and gold?
Yeah,
That's similar to Cashflow Ninja.
They've changed their colors a little bit, but what I liked was that I wanted, for my personal brand for Cashflow Ninja, I wanted like this crazy purple and Amazon. Well, the color orange was always going to be in that, just because of the psychological test that Amazon has done. Again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel; you just figure out what colors work. So that's why you see a lot of blue and Amazon kind of yellowish companies out there. But I wanted something that could pop, especially on the iTunes store. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of subconscious. I think afterwards, my wife said that too. That's kind of like Robert Kiyosaki's colors. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. And they've since changed it to, I think, a little bit lighter. But hey, if there's someone that I'm going to copy if I want to be successful, I don't mind copying Robert.
Right. And you've got the Los Angeles Lakers too, pretty noteworthy organization.
Yeah, that's right. That's This is, I didn't even think of that. So there's a couple of other brands that have those colors, but yeah, it's I mean, you've got to, I just look at what works, and I think that was an important lesson for me too. For instance, by the way, that color shade purple that the Rich Dad brand has now, I know that Monster changed their logos as well, just through my research, because Monster.com, for listeners that might not be familiar with it, I don't know how popular it is these days, but it's a massive job searching website, and they figured that through their numbers and studying their traffic, that the majority of people on that site was women. And women are drawn to purple. I mean, my wife's favorite color is purple, right? So they're drawn to that color because just as blue also has a trusting effect and a trusting nature of a color, purple does the same thing of comfort and kind of a trusting nature. So yeah, it's very interesting once you get into all these things, and there's a lot of things to consider when you're building a brand and building a logo and designing a logo and picking colors. So I would urge your listeners to look at just some of these case studies and look at the successful brands, what their colors are, research what the colors stand for, and what, maybe why they pick those colors. Definitely.
I just punched in monster.com right now, and I do see they rebranded, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, and that was one of the things that came across, I think, 3 or 4 years ago when I did that. But yeah, you could see the color purple that they have on there too, and they test these things constantly.
Definitely. All right, MC. Well, we honestly have kind of gone over time compared to how long I normally like to do these interviews, but I'm definitely going to be advertising this one as an extended version, and I really hope that we can impact our listeners' lives. Do you have any final remarks for the listeners?
No, thank you so much for having me on. As always, enjoyed our conversation, and thank you for the listeners listening in.
All right, guys, thank you very much, and we will see you in the next episode.